Coming up, the Orioles walk off with a win and the Tigers find a way to break their losing streak in Toronto. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us to go over the biggest stories in baseball and recap all of the action for you from yesterday in the MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. A walk-off win in Baltimore thanks to Adley Rutschman. And Locked On Orioles says, surprisingly, this was a first for Adley.
Well, I can't believe it, but somehow, some way, that was Adley Rutschman's first career walk-off home run. Not just in the majors or in pro baseball, but he told Kevin Brown and Ben McDonald after the game that he's never had a walk-off homer. Well, good thing he saved it for the major leagues. The O's win it 8-7 over the A's with a walk-off homer from Adley on Thursday afternoon in what was a hot, sunny day at the ballpark. Had to get back in the AC before recording this one. But the Orioles win it. They take 3 out of 4 in the series from Oakland. The starting pitching was bad. Cole Irvin was terrible again. But the bullpen kept the O's in it. The offense was great across the board. Ryan O'Hearn with a nice little Orioles debut after getting called up on Thursday. And it wasn't super pretty, but it ended the best way it can. And the Orioles take the series over Oakland. I'll recap it all coming up on Friday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
Tampa tying the best start to a season we have seen in modern-day baseball. They have improved to 13-0 after sweeping Boston this week. Locked On Red Sox, the latest victims, and able to see how good Tampa is up close.
Listen, it is a beautiful day in Boston today, so we are not going to let the Red Sox damper our mood, even though they just got swept by the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday afternoon. What's going on, everyone? It's Lauren from Locked On Red Sox, and another day, another loss for the Red Sox. They were swept out of Tampa Bay. Now they do return home for a series against the Los Angeles Angels beginning on Friday, but this game got out of hand very, very quickly. A 7-run fifth inning just put the Red Sox in the ground. Just an ugly offensive showing. Pitching obviously was not that great, and the Rays bats just continued to pummel the Red Sox. Thank God they're out of Tampa Bay, but Jake and I will break this game down for you from the pitching, the offense, and everything in between on our next episode of Locked On Red Sox.
Cincinnati gets back on track against Philly on Thursday. Locked On Reds fired up with the win.
Now that's more like it. The Cincinnati Reds string together a bunch of hits and get the win. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast, and the Cincinnati Reds stopped the losing streak as they welcomed the Philadelphia Phillies to Great American Ballpark, getting the win in Game 1, stopping a 3-game losing skid with a bunch of singles. Not really a whole lot of power, really not many extra base hits to talk about. It was just timely hitting with guys on base, keeping the pressure on. Beautiful 2-out rally in the third inning to get things off the ground, and great pitching by Nick Lodolo in the bullpen did what it needed to do. We got more to talk about on the next Locked On Reds. Make sure you join me.
Coming up, Detroit snaps that 6-game losing skid. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bars on the market. Trust me, they're made with 100% real chocolate, so that's probably why they taste so good, and they come in dozens of different flavors. They are made with that 100% real chocolate, but they're also good for you. They are low in carbs, low in fat, low in sugar, but high in protein. I personally like the Puffs. Those are the protein-infused marshmallow bars. They are my favorite, and they come in dozens of different flavors. As I mentioned, I like brownie batter and coconut puffs. Those are my favorite too. If you want to buy them, you can head over to Built.com, but now you can also buy them at Walmart or Sam's Club. If you head to Walmart, they are in the pharmacy section. You can get the 4-bar boxes there, or you can head to Sam's Club like I do and get the 13-bar boxes so you can stock up and have them for a while. Of course, you can always find Built Bars at Built.com. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you again for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. A small miracle in Toronto as the Tigers found a way to win a baseball game. Locked On Blue Jays and Locked On Tigers are in with the details.
Don't look now, for the Detroit Tigers have won a baseball game. I am Scott Bentley of Locked On Tigers. You know, it's been a rough start to the season, obviously. This win improves you to, 3-9? But this was a we'll-take-it victory. This was, for all of the bullpen struggles that this team has had this year, pretty much everybody that came out of the pen in this game looked really sharp. Jason Foley looked great. Alex Lang was really efficient. Jose Cisnero got out of an inning without giving up a run. Chasen Shreve continues to look pretty solid this year. Spencer Turnbull starts this ball game. He needs to work on the efficiency a little bit, but again, as a whole, against a really good lineup, came out of it looking really good. The Tigers probably should have taken 2 of 3 in this series, which, relatively speaking, you'll take. But unfortunately, only leaving with 1. But we'll go back home with a victory under our belts heading into a series against San Francisco. We'll talk about the rest all tomorrow on Locked On Tigers.
St. Louis was shut out as the Bats go cold once again, this time against the Pirates. Locked On Cardinals unimpressed with the team's showing.
The Cardinals offense disappears again as they get shut out by the Pittsburgh Pirates by the score of 5-0. Hey, it's Shady from Locked On Cardinals, and tonight the Cardinals faced a starting pitcher for Pittsburgh whose ERA was close to 10 coming into the game, and they proceeded to throw up a goose egg in the runs column and managed to get just 3 hits over 6 innings against him. And you kind of had the feeling it was going to be one of those nights in the first inning when Donovan was on third base, 1 out, and your 2 best hitters, Goldie and Arenado, were coming up. Goldie strikes out on maybe the worst swing I've ever seen him take in a Cardinals uniform, and then Arenado pops up weakly, stranding yet another runner in scoring position, something this team has excelled at doing so far this year. Jordan Montgomery, fantastic. Going 6 1/3, allows just 2 runs on 6 hits. He strikes out 5, but it was wasted due to the lack of offense. The guys did hit multiple balls really, really hard. But unfortunately, they found gloves instead of grass. They were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position tonight. That's why they lost, not because of the pitching. For the latest updates and info, be sure to keep it Locked On Cardinals.
The Padres were able to rally and force extras against the Brewers, but they ended up falling in 10 innings. Locked On Padres with lots of issues to go over in a frustrating finish.
Oh my God! What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Javier Reyes here from the Locked On Padres podcast. I don't know what that sound was. I guess the sound of just a heartbreak, because that's what happened tonight in the game. Padres lose 4-3 in extra innings. Nick Martinez was the starter in this one. Didn't do too much. Gave up that big home run to Rowdy Tellez, but he wasn't that bad. It was okay for him. It's what you kind of expect from Martinez at this point for a back-end rotation starter. And unfortunately, the Padres offense wasn't super great throughout the whole game, despite it being one of the weaker starters on Milwaukee. But Manny Machado, first home run of the year, finally, and Trent Grisham, bottom of the 8th inning, tying up the game with a 2-run home run. That was awesome. His 4th of the year. If he can just be an average offensive player, which I think he's showing he can, he's made strides, better approach at the plate and whatnot. So that's really cool. But once again, the Campusano Hive, we're struggling out here. I remain strong, but it's just frustrating. I mean, he starts out his career practically pinch hitting against Kenley Jansen and the Dodgers, and they're bringing him in to pinch hit. No consistent playing time, seemingly. And then they bring him in with the game on the line. I just hate the way that they've been using him, and I don't like that Austin Nola, not the worst player in the world by any stretch, but I don't understand why he just gets this, always getting the start over him and always gets back-to-back. Hopefully with Musgrove coming back, that changes, but that's my big takeaway is I just don't understand how they're treating him. But don't worry, my fellow Campy Hive members, our time will come, I promise. But until that time, stay faithful, ladies and gentlemen.
That's a wrap for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.